Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs here on Golf Channel. You can also listen to us on the PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. It's great to have you with us on this Monday morning. I am Gary Williams, and this show is always brought to you by Sentry Insurance, right by you, investing in all the great things in the game of golf, from the first tee to the relationship with the United States Golf Association, as well as that first event of the calendar year on the PGA Tour. Golf Pride. When you grip the club, more players at every level use Golf Pride all over the world. Most trusted grip in golf. Peter Millar, everything that I've worn for 15 years, they have been refining performance, style, and luxury better than anybody. And then finally, the cradle of American golf, Pinehurst. And a guy who had a moment there last year, I know is going to be there again today. There's always a great time to be there at Pinehurst, and it's the springtime. They've got the cottages at number 8, which are going to be available for you in May, meaning that you can go ahead and book now. A great day in Pinehurst is every day. Well, the day yesterday was great. It was also overwhelming. It was exhausting. It was exhilarating, because what we saw yesterday is why the human drama of athletic competition, the line uttered so expertly by Jim McKay on Wide World of Sports back in the 1970s, is why it's so darn true, because Rory McIlroy has crossed the biggest line and broken through the biggest vortex of his career, not only in winning another major, but winning the career Grand Slam. So let's start by looking at the leaderboard. The final leaderboard yesterday at the 89th Masters Tournament. Rory makes birdie on the first playoff hole, and he beats Justin Rose. Rose now joins Ben Hogan as the only man to lose 2 playoffs in the Masters. Of course, Hogan won 2 Masters as well. How about Patrick Reed, the 2018 champion, jumping up? He holds his second on 17, third alone. Scotty Scheffler, fourth alone, the 2-time champion. Another good result for him. He probably is going, my gosh, if I had done just a little bit more. And he might have late, like others, had posted numbers. Sungjae Im and Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson went in the wrong direction, kind of salvaged it late. To shoot 7 under par for the week and a tie for 5th. Ludwig Åberg, his second Masters start, only his 5th major start, 7th alone. He too, if he birdies 17, it's like, my God, you could birdie 18, post a number. Instead, he 3-putted the hole. Xander Schauffele, he's coming around. He's knocking off the rust. Good result for him to get into the top 8. Jason Day has an excellent record at Augusta National. And then Corey Connors, who was part of the conversation the whole week, went in the wrong direction himself, but still finished in a tie for 8th. 30 years ago, something happened in this country that changed television forever. It was the murder trial that involved a very famous American athlete. And when that trial was going on, every day the trial was on the air. And what happened to daytime dramas? They actually went away. I think there's a few still around. Who knows? Do you watch General Hospital? Is All My Children still on? Is Guiding Light still around? I don't know. But what I know is that when that occurrence happened, it ushered in what is now something that is more prevalent, more pervasive across whether it's linear television or digital mediums, and it's a thing called reality television. The truth is, reality television is not really reality. It's completely contrived. Okay, we're going to put these 12 people in a house with one other person, and we're going to infuse them with a lot of alcohol, which usually produces a lot of bad decisions. And you're going to say, my gosh, look at that. Organically, they've fallen in love. That's not reality. Because daytime dramas, which went away in terms of what are called soap operas, have always been around. They're sporting events. Because the daytime drama that you watched yesterday will beat anything that you're going to watch on Bravo or Hulu or wherever else you watch, and The Real Housewives of Newark, New Jersey. I don't know. There's so many franchises, I can't keep up. Rory McIlroy went through something over the last 10 years. And when I say went through something, it's golf, it's relative, but here we are in our nice little cozy community of golf, and we can speak about it in terms of it being dramatic and traumatic, because the last 10 years for him have produced a lot of wins, a lot of close calls, but those close calls, and in particular, the last 3 years in major championships, 2022 at the Open Championship, 2023 at the U.S. Open, and then, of course, last year at Pinehurst, the deepest cut of them all, the two short misses, with a two-shot lead standing on the 14th tee that he squandered, and Bryson DeChambeau swoops in, hits the remarkable long bunker shot on 18, and he wins the U.S. Open. So a lot of people thought that Rory McIlroy, if he was ever going to complete the career Grand Slam, they would have to win a major somewhere else. So that didn't happen. So what Rory McIlroy did yesterday is join an incredible elite company of men that over the last 90 years of major championship golf, as we look at it, because the Masters, not the Masters in name when it was founded and started in 1934, Gene Sarazen won the event. In 1935, they didn't know what it was. They knew that it was fun to be around Bobby Jones, and a lot of the best players certainly came to the event. And he holed a fairway wood on the 15th hole, forced a playoff with Craig Wood, won the next day, and it's like, congratulations. And then many years later, when the Masters became the Masters, it's like, you know what? He already had the three other majors. He's won the career Grand Slam. He was the first to do it. That was his 7th major championship victory. And then it was Ben Hogan in 1953, one of the great players, certainly of all time. Of course, Sarazen won as well. But even then, we didn't know that we had this, quote, quartet of tournaments that were clearly defined as a Grand Slam. Not really, because the amateur was the most important player when golf became a thing in this country. And that's why Bob Jones's Grand Slam included 2 amateur titles in 1930. So in 1953, when Hogan won the Open Championship at Carnoustie, and do you realize how cool it is and how gutsy it is that one, he didn't get on a plane, he got on a boat, and he went to Carnoustie, and the wee Iceman won the only Open Championship that he teed up in, a one-off. And that was the 4th leg of his Grand Slam and his last major championship, his 9th. And then on to 1965 and Gary Player. And he had already become the first international winner in the Masters in 1961. And in 1965, he wins the U.S. Open. That was his 4th major. And that was the 4th different major. So he too joins what at that time was not necessarily a group where people were talking about it like, wow, you're now with Sarazen and Hogan. There was still some modesty and kind of a crude dialogue around what it was that they had done. But it was building. The following year, Jack Nicklaus won his 6th major championship. It was the Open Championship. And that too completed his Grand Slam. Of course, he would go on to win 18 of them. And then let's go all the way forward from 1966 to 2000. It's a long time. And it was Tiger. And like Gary Player, his 4 major championship titles, his first 4, were all 4 at the old course at St. Andrews. So from that day in July of 2000 until yesterday, and by the way, there have been countless people who have been born, who have gotten themselves into golf, fallen in love with golf, actually playing golf at the elite level, like Ludwig Oberg. He wasn't alive the last time the career Grand Slam was completed. And Rory did it yesterday, and he did it in a way that I think should be a symposium for clinicians and psychologists and psychiatrists to examine what is called an instinctive physiological condition called fight or flight. Because from the first hole through the playoff, it was literally the yin and yang of flight with a double on the first to fight with a birdie on the 3rd, and then again another one on the 4th. And then he hits a foul ball on the 5th hole, and you're going, oh my gosh, what's happening here? I thought he had found his footing. And even though he did, Rory McIlroy play holes 3 through 10 in 4 under par, I never felt, don't know how you felt, that he was stabilized. There was something very unnerving about all of the shots that he was hitting. For every good shot he would hit, or second shot that he would hit, it was then followed by something that made you scratch your head. And listen, I understand, I've been around this a while. It's a game of imperfect. There are more misses than shots hit out of the center of their face, and considering the circumstance, which was as suffocating as any environment you could ever hope for, the fact is that he was dealing with something that was so extraordinary psychologically that I honestly think that he was having a hard time getting his feels, as they call them, which again were producing weird shots. Even the decision he made on the 11th hole with his second shot, which wound up being an enormous break. But then his third on 13 happened. You went, oh my God, what in the world is going on here? And then he bogeyed 14. And then from the left fairway, which, by the way, was a gift. And you want to know why that 7-iron that he slung around the corner was the best thing to happen to him? Because at the end of the day, go back to 8-year-old Rory. You know what the most comfortable, easiest thing for him to do? Sling a hook. And that's what he did. But what did he do immediately after that? Looked sheepish and timid, shook it off the blade, didn't make eagle, didn't make birdie on 16. It was one of the most extraordinary 5 hours that any of us have ever watched. And it's not just the people who cover golf, sports fans. There are a lot of winners, certainly today, starting with him, because this means so much. And I, by the way, don't like people who cut lines. I think the lack of civility in people who cut lines it's right up there. But he cut a line yesterday, because I don't know where he was in the grand pecking order of historical players. He made a giant leap, so he went, get out of the way. You too. I'm going to move in front of you. Big leap. We're going to talk about a lot of it. Here is a short interview that Rory did last night with 5 Clubs contributor and host of The Starter, Taylor Zarzour.
Rory, did you always believe we'd be standing here doing this and it would happen, that you would win the Masters?
Yeah, deep down I did. Deep down I did think. Did I have my doubts from time to time? Absolutely. But deep down I always believed that I had the game to win here at Augusta. And I think today, you know, I've proved over the years that I've had the game, but did I have it up here in the head, and did I have the fortitude to get over the line? And you know, it was touch and go at times today, but thankfully I was able to get the job done.
There were so many shocks to the system, not just today, through the years. Yeah. Today was sort of a microcosm. This week was sort of a microcosm of what you have been through. How were you able to control it?
I think I just kept telling myself, especially today, that I've been able to bounce back really well from things this week. You know, whether it be the 2 doubles on Thursday night, you know, whether it be the you know, the little hiccups here and there along the way, and I've shown a lot of resilience, not just this week, but all the way through this year, and. It's funny, I double bogeyed the first, which isn't the best start, but the first thing that popped into my head was John Rahm in 2023, doubling the first and going on to win. So, you know, I kept a positive mindset, and, you know, I just kept going. I set myself a target to try to get to today. I didn't get to it, but that was what was in my head, and that was what I made the most important thing. It wasn't about trying to win the golf tournament, but if I can get to this specific number, then the golf tournament will take care of itself.
A little boy from Northern Ireland has won the career Grand Slam and won the Masters. Your dreams did come true. Congratulations.
Thanks, Taylor. Thank you.
If you consider the gap in time between the 4th major and the 5th major being over 10 years, that's one. And then it's the career Grand Slam, which I've said it repeatedly about Gene Sarazen. It doesn't discredit it at all. This is the electronic age. This has been the lead storyline since he went there for the first time to try to do it in 2015. So stack that on it. And then put the heartbreak of 22, 23, and 24, put that on top of it. And then as a nice little cherry on top, in order for you to cross the line on this Sunday, you know who we're going to put in your group? The guy who clipped you the last time you were gutted, who has become this incredible YouTube sensation and is a people's champion and is just a very exuberant, very emoting guy in Bryson DeChambeau. So you got to look at him all day. What do you think? We're going to make this easy for you? And then, by the way, we're going to give you basically the length putt on 18 because you missed a wedge into the right bunker, hit a little chunk and run down there to 4.5 feet. Of course it was 4.5. It wasn't 10. I think he would have had a better chance of making a 10-footer. Let's give him the same distance, essentially, that he missed at Pinehurst last year. And then he's going to miss it. Then he's got to go sign his card, and he's got to go back out there and play the same hole where he thought it was over, and it wasn't. He walked through fire. He walked through glass. It took more than 10 years, and he's done it in a way that I know that I'm not going to be covering this sport if we have anything contextually that's even remotely similar to what he did yesterday with all the baggage, scar tissue, history, trauma, you name it. And you know what? The people who've supported him his whole life, his whole life, in this little bedroom, modest little community in Northern Ireland. And it wasn't 7:15 at night when the playoff ended there. It was after midnight. And maybe a pint or 2,000 had been consumed. Let's take a look at the people who know him best and how they responded to him making this little 3.5-foot putt to win the Masters tournament. Yes, he's from Hollywood, not California, Northern Ireland. Those people. There's likely a handful of people in that room last night that maybe gave him a ride to the golf course when he was 9 years old. While they all have to do it alone, and at the end of the day, even after they get some massaging audibly from their caddy, who's become an integral part of it, it's up to them, and it comes down to them. But all those people, the investment they've made in him really his whole life, I can't possibly imagine what that felt like. But I saw what it looked like. All right, we're going to take our first break. When we continue, Brendan Porath of Friday Golf, saw him throughout the week at Augusta National. He can give us his own perspective, which I know is going to be a good one, on what transpired yesterday, what it all means for him and everybody else as we continue with you on this Monday edition of Five Clubs. And you know what? As Roy Scheider said to Robert Shaw in Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat. We need more time. We're back on Five Clubs right after this. Back in on this Monday on Five Clubs on Golf Channel and also on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. This segment is brought to you by Golf Pride, the new Align Max grips. I have them on my clubs. All of the grips they have are trusted by more players at every level, recreational, all the way up to the guys, including the guy who won the Masters yesterday. It is Golf Pride. All right, joining me now, he's the head of content for Friday. I know he was up until the wee hours, but it's one of those days that you know you're going to have. You can't just simply go to bed when you're done with your podcast, which they knocked out. He and Andy did last night. I haven't consumed it yet because I wanted to get some sleep. I'll listen to it a little bit later on today. He, of course, is Brendan Porath from Augusta, Georgia. Good morning.
Good morning, Gary. Great to be with you on a historic Monday morning here.
Truly. And, for you guys, look, you guys do this anyway. It's almost like you put the proverbial carcass in the middle of the table, and then you pull all the meat off the bone. And the gluttony last night, for all that was for you guys to try to digest, you could do a 10-part series. You probably will on the 2025 Masters at some point. Let me try to get it down to some significant moments. If I said to you the three most significant things that happened yesterday, not historically, I'm talking about on the golf course yesterday, they could have been good, they could have been bad, that you thought were the three most powerful, memorable things that you will remember forever.
Man, it's so hard to distill that down. We were really flying high before the round even started, right? It had set up perfectly. If you want me to go with three, number one for me, I think is the shot into 15, Gary. That it was all going bad. It was off the tracks. We were going to a combination of the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, the Open at St. Andrews, the LACC close call, and turning it all up to 100, throwing them all in the mixing bowl, and making this really one of the great, horrific, not great, but one of the horrific late Sunday collapses when we didn't think there was anything that could get in his way besides himself, and he was doing it. And that shot on 15, I will remember forever. 15, of course, one of the great holes, the great par fives ever, in the world, and for what it sets up in that Sunday theater. And I was up there in the trees, left of the green, left of the fairway with him. We saw the shot. We saw it land safely. But that dynamic at 15, where you're not sure how good it is, how close it is, how safe it is, you react to the two grandstands that frame that green so well, and everyone stood up roaring, screaming. It's the loudest I've ever heard Augusta National. I haven't been there forever, but it's the loudest I've ever heard it. And it cascades up the hill. Those two grandstands, they see it up close, and they rise, and they make noise, and then it cascades up the hill. And that sensation of that arena as everyone up the hill gets back on the Rory bus and tries to will him across the line was one I'll never forget, because it had been so unnerving the prior hour or so. And that shot for me is the top. 13, I think, has to be a major part of this. That wedge shot, which he talked about, can be a little bit uncomfortable given the side hill lie. And he aimed, he joked, I have to aim a little right because those can come, I can pull those a little left. It wasn't like I was aiming in the middle of the creek, but he was aiming a little to his right. That one where it felt like just himself he was battling at that point. He played it a little more conservatively, and then it all came undone on the third shot when that needed to be executed. That one for sure is up there. And then I think the second shot into 18 in the playoff, how can you not choose that as a third moment? The ultimate moment of triumph when he made it as hard as possible. Justin Rose pushed him to the limit. He makes a bogey at 18. And he sees Justin Rose, quite honestly. Rose put down a marker there with a shot that was on the flag. Now, Rory's down the hill. He probably can't tell how close it is. He might, he knows it's online and it's on the stick. And he uses the quarter shot, right, that he's talked about, becoming a better golfer, maturing, mixing in different shots, not having to go full go. And wedges were really his bugaboo there in the immediate aftermath of his 2014 major. And then using those clubs and mixing in the quarter shot to use that hill that we've seen become such a fixture in late Sundays at Masters, that would be the third shot that won it for me.
Brendan, how do you assess this fascinating duality? He is resilient because whether it is from one event to the next, to put himself back in the arena after taking one in the chops, as he's done in 3 straight years, or literally yesterday, to feel like that's the blow that is probably going to end him. So he does have this bona fide resilience, which is also coupled with this palpable vulnerability / fragility. How do you assess that?
Well, I think he's just incredibly authentic, an open and vulnerable person, and I think it comes from the beginning, right? He's a son of working class parents in Northern Ireland. His father poured pints. He hasn't been sort of put in the lab and become this automaton, a professional golfer automaton, and he's been through the ups and downs and laid himself bare. And I think to his credit, that has built, whatever you want to say, the Rory McIlroy brand. It's an inauthentic term to use that brand. It feels sort of dehumanizing. But in the way that he has made himself vulnerable and made him showed his human element, it has built this quote unquote brand to the point where last night, as you talked about, last night you want to consume everyone's content. It's 2 a.m. We've done our podcast. I still want to read and see what's out there. I had casual friends, people who are not into golf, all across Instagram, social media, my own text messages, sending sort of the teary-eyed emoji or the welling up emoji and sharing their point of view of watching Rory, the resharing the Masters highlights that their great digital team posted. This was a win, a moment, a March that really resonated outside of our little golf corner of the world. Of course, we know Rory from very well being in this corner because he speaks so eloquently and so vulnerably so often. But this was a win and a story that resonated so far. And I think a lot of that is Rory just being an authentic and honest person. He's not programmed. And he was that in the heartbreak. He's been that in the heartbreak. He's talked about it at LA. I'd go through 100 Sundays like this to have this chance at the Open. I'll never forget him talking about seeing, going out on the balcony of the Russicks across from the scoreboard of the Open. I could picture my name. I could see my name on top of that leaderboard every night and just wonder what could be winning an Open at the Old Course. So he's talked this way, and it had all built to this moment that created just sort of this larger sports and pop culture moment in golf.
Last thing, Brendan, for now, because we will be talking about this, because I don't know necessarily what this means next month, and that's where I'm leading you. There's this belief, theory, feeling, and I feel it, that this was such an overwhelming thing to be carrying, and with every year it got a little bit weightier for him. And now there's this sense that he's been liberated by not only winning another major, but crossing that line, getting that jacket, knowing how personal his relationship is with that club. I'm not a floodgates guy. I just think that we get recency bias is an epidemic. However, do you think that this is something that at the end of this year, whether it's one more or whatever the haul is, it is the best year of his life because he won the Masters and won the career Grand Slam. Is he getting ready to do something that doesn't happen very much? And I'm talking about multiple majors, 5, 6, 7 wins. He's never won 5 in a season. Is that what this is going to be?
It feels hard. It feels hard to argue against that right now, Gary. And I agree with you. I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but we have talked for so long about Rory McIlroy has matched up the physical gifts with the mental and strategic game. It was just this, and it feels weird to talk about the intangible. And he used the term burden. He used the term weight. There was something intangible that was really weighing him down. Something was happening to him, and you felt it yesterday at 14. It was suffocating. I don't mean to be dramatic here, but the air got stiller, it got hotter, it was suffocating, it was heavy, and this has been the story of his majors for the last 11 years, and that is gone. He is unburdened. So we have that physical game as mature, as good as ever, the most shots. We have the mental approach. He's a strategic golfer, and we've seen that at the majors that have put him in the battle at a variety of venues in the most challenging golf courses, and now we have whatever you want to define as this burden is off him. And I don't know if it's floodgates, but boy, it's all lined up now. It is all lined up, and the burden has been removed, and he's done it at, honestly, he did it at, it's not, the fact that this drought ended is one thing. The fact that he did it at sort of this house of horrors,
yes,
this place that had kind of bothered him, that he had to keep coming year after year after year. The fact that it's all happened there, and that's the way it did it. How can you not be bullish on the rest of the year and the venues that line up for him?
No question about it. It was great seeing you, your team, all the great work you guys do. I look forward to talking with you very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gary.
All right, there's Brendan Porath. He is the head of content for Friday Golf, all their stuff every day. They were doing wonderful things throughout Masters Week. We take a break. Man who has to craft the words and write the essays that explain the stories that unfold on the biggest stages in golf. Rich Lerner, the Live From team. Watching golf with them in the TV compound is almost as entertaining as the golf. Maybe not yesterday. His perspective, which is so valued, coming up next on this Monday edition of 5 Clubs on Golf Channel and on the PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. We're back right after this. Hey, Postmasters Monday here on 5 Clubs on Golf Channel, also on PGA Tour Radio, Channel 92 on Sirius XM. And this segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. For over 2 decades, refining performance and style. I've worn Peter Millar exclusively for 15 years. Nobody can outfit you. Soccer game, boardroom, golf course. It's Peter Millar. All right, joining me now, he is always Natalie clad. He is long, he is lean, he is Lerner, he is Rich Lerner. I don't know if he got that bowl of pasta in downtown Augusta at midnight last night, but kind enough to get up early after a night that, for someone who is one of the great wordsmiths all time, I don't know if you struggled or I don't know if it just flowed. Good morning.
Good morning, G-Dub. Let me just say this. Jaime Diaz, late in our show, your great pal, my great pal, Jaime Diaz, came on, and he had this number 4, top 10 all-time major championships. He had Jack in 86, he had Tiger 97, he had Tiger 19, and he had Rory 25 as number 4. We can go through the whole list later. And just to give you a sense of our business, about 90 minutes later, we were back at the Wallace House at Augusta Country Club, rating top 10 worst pizzas we've ever had in our life. in our live from career, because we had 6 boxes of the worst, driest pizza, and we ate every damn last piece. McGinley was there, Diaz was there, Casey and Ryan, our 2 great research guys, were there. But what we not only ate bad pizza, we continued to chop up what we all thought was one of the greatest single days we've ever seen.
Rich, take people through, all these people who write the stories. They have their deadline, and their deadline is not long after it's over. Your deadline is right when it's over, because you are trying to be as nimble as you can as things are transpiring to write, whether it, as you were just saying before we came on, am I writing something like 86? Or I'm writing something like 96. Take people through your late afternoon as this is unfolding, and we are watching fatalism, heroism, just blended together from one hole to the next.
So I had a Rory piece written on Saturday, anticipating that he would win on Sunday. I had a Bryson DeChambeau piece written on Saturday in anticipation that he might win on Sunday. And for what it's worth, my principal takeaway with Bryson was going to be, had he won, that he was going to walk out of Augusta National with a green jacket as the most powerful single man in the sport of golf, given the desire for reunification. That didn't happen. So felt good about my Rory piece. And in fact, the staff back in Stamford at NBC Sports was hard at work editing this closing essay. And, I think as he stood on 12 tee, as he got through 12, we're in great shape. They probably were 90% finished with what would have been an edit that took most of the day. By 5:45, I had people screaming at me, Rich, you need to get in the van. We have to get over to Augusta National. We do our work for most of the day until we get to the set over at Augusta Country Club. It's about a 15-minute drive. So I then had to quickly write. I wrote an Oberg piece. I had a Rose piece written maybe 2 hours before. And all I kept saying to the TV was, Jiminy crickets, Rory, please finish this thing so I can get over to the set. For me, it was a harrowing day. And thank goodness the Rory piece was able to live.
It did indeed. You mentioned Jaime Diaz. One of the things that you guys did last night was have him, because he's got as much historical depth and context as anybody, for him to make his own list. And he did it with some different variables. Considering all of the elements to it, where do you put it? Not best for this, just specifically, but all of the things, all the ingredients, where do you put it?
Well, a couple things. It was the most manic, insane single day that I can remember since the Open of 1999, when Jean Van de Velde jumped in the Barry Burn. And 5 hours later, I was walking down the train tracks in Carnoustie smoking a Marlboro, and I don't smoke cigarettes. So the big difference, obviously, between the two. Van de Velde was, with all due respect, I love Jean. I was trying to become the first Frenchman since Arnaud Massey in 1907 to have won an Open. This was Rory trying to join Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Tiger Woods. So for sheer insanity, excitement, swings in emotion, this was right there with anything I've ever covered. It was a Masters classic, obviously, but I think even more than that, I think it was a sports classic. And I would say, in terms of significance, Gary, it makes Rory the first true legend of the post-Tiger Woods era. We've had great players, but I don't think we've had a bona fide legend. I say that with all due respect to Brooks Koepka, because 5 majors is nothing to sneeze at. But there's a difference between great player, great achievement, and a bedrock legend of the sport. This was, I think, in the same historical neighborhood as Nicklaus in '86, as Tiger in '97, as Tiger in 2019. And I said as much in my Wednesday night essay that Rory's already a great player. He has all the wins and all the scars to prove it. This one would make him a stone cold legend of the sport. Rory could walk off into the night. He won't. He doesn't have to do another. Gary, doesn't have to do another thing the rest of his days. That's another point I made last night. The whole world's like a Jewish mother with these great athletes. And you could be one of the 2 best heart surgeons, broadcasters, painters, chefs, keep going, in the world. And people are constantly asking you, to do more. They're telling you, you haven't done enough. Imagine living in that world. They get paid a lot of money, but it comes at a brutal cost, and they have to lay themselves bare before the public. So Rory doesn't have to, Rory doesn't have to do another thing the rest of his days. He's good. But it certainly wasn't easy. And the piece that I did write last night was that, Rory won, but in order to get there, he had to fail and fail a lot. That at the edge of a breakthrough is a breakdown. At the far frontier of discovery is disappointment. At one step from clarity is confusion. And you know this. Rory has read all of Ryan Holiday's books about the Stoics, Epictetus, the Greek philosopher. Rory really delved into that. I did a long piece with him a few years back. The willingness to kind of be made a fool in front of the world and to keep coming back. And I do think what really resonated with the public here is that at a time when we're really sort of struggling to point to the professional sports world, which tends to be all about money, even college sports now, and find really good lessons that you could turn to your kids or your grandkids and say, that's what you need to pay attention to. There were some really good lessons in all of this, just plain old perseverance, resilience. Keep your chin up, get up off the mat, keep coming back. And that's what I think really resonated with so many people.
Rich, last night you asked this question, starting with Paul McGinley, being from the European community. He is obviously the first European to complete the career Grand Slam. You asked him if he is now the greatest European player of all time. It really is, it's 3 guys. It's Faldo, it's Seve, it's Rory. Where do you fall?
Don't forget about Harry Vardon, who won 7. But
yes, right.
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's a difference. It's like, asking, who was more important, Arnold or Jack? Jack was better. I say that with the utmost respect. Arnie's possibly my favorite player of all time. But Arnie, you can make the case was more important, just as you could make the case that Seve may have been more important. Right. Given that he put the European Tour on his back and made it what it would become in its heyday in the 1990s, given what he did for the Ryder Cup. But I do think Rory's the best European player ever. It isn't just that he's won 5 majors. I understand that's as many as Seve and 1 short of Nick Faldo. But he's won 2 Players' Championships in the most competitive era in the history of the sport. He's won now 29 times on the PGA Tour, and he's in the most select club there is. He's one of 6 to have won all 4. He's the rare man for all seasons. So, I would say Rory is there, and I think if you're looking for goals down the road, I would think 40 to 45 wins, maybe chase down Mickelson. If Rory stays healthy and hungry, then I think 45 wins. I think he could jump, certainly in the top 10 all time, maybe, 7, 8, 9 in that territory. I do think another few majors are absolutely realistic. You can't help but get excited for Quail Hollow. Gary, that course. It's right in your backyard. He's won there 4 times already. It's tailor-made for him. And you think about the kind of juice we'll have in this sport if McIlroy goes to Charlotte and wins the second major of the year. And then we go to Oakmont, it's all the way on at that point. And if we can dream on this Monday morning, he knocks off 3. You talk about, one of the greatest, most momentous occasions in the history of the game. It would be headed back home to Northern Ireland, to Royal Portrush for the Open. But that's a long ways down. I'm getting, as Paulie would say, I'm getting a little giddy right now, Gary.
Well, I mean, I think you guys talked about this last night. All the things that you just shared that we've all talked about, the burden and all the baggage and scar tissue. And there was article written, and he has shared the fact that he has experienced and tried hypnosis. And like you said with Ryan Holiday, trying to not look at things as just being, success or failure, that it's merely an outcome, because we're all conditioned to think about what it would be with what we want the desired result to be, but it hasn't been that. So he's got to be liberated. And a month later, here he comes here. And one last thing, Scottie Scheffler finished 4th, and because he was so far out in front of everybody, and you can value the world number 1 any way you want, the guy who won yesterday is the best player in the world now. So if we're going to get that, it now is on Scottie to return a serve, because he's been good, but he hadn't won. And by the way, Rory has done by yesterday what Scottie had done last year. 3 wins, leaving Augusta National. Signature Series win, a Players, and a green jacket. Rory has now done the same thing next year. Scottie, in his response to me, is a very interesting element.
No doubt about it. This is the first time that Rory has laid down a marker, come get me. And now I think where we couldn't, even a month or 2 months ago, engage in the discussion, who's the best player in the world, Scottie or Rory? I think it was clearly Scottie Scheffler. And I would still say Scottie is that guy, although that margin has shrunk. Rory's obviously having the better year. But I think you talked about at the top, recency bias. I will say, but you think about all the things that Rory's knocked off in just 3.5 short months here in 2025. When we went to Pebble, Gary, you remember people were asking him if it bothered him that he had not yet in his career won at one of the cathedrals of golf.
Yep.
Talking about Pebble Beach and the old course at St. Andrews. He had that really good chance at the 2022 Open. When he was sort of fighting for the establishment, everybody knew that Cam Smith was headed to live and Rory couldn't get it done in the final round. Well, here we are into April. He's won at 2 cathedrals. He won at Pebble Beach, and now he's won at Augusta National. He's won 2 playoffs. He's won 3 tournaments. He had never won more than, he'd never come to Augusta with multiple victories in a year. And now you can begin to think about Rory having the kind of season that Scottie had a year ago. Go get 5, 6, 7 wins. He's that good, and sets up for maybe an historic season.
Most certainly.
This is Rory's time. But my goodness, Gary, what we witnessed yesterday, it was there were 2 phrases that were uttered over and over again. For God's sakes. And you got to be kidding me. I mean, and it started early. It started early.
Of
the
course
double
it did.
was, for God's sakes, we're going to do this again. And then, there were 2 different ways we said, you got to be kidding me. At 13, when he dumped it in Ray's Creek, you got to be kidding me. Like you're really, Rory? And then when he hit the sweeping hook at 15, you're like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the full Rory experience is just the best.
It's exhausting and exhilarating.
I can't do another one.
You're going to have to. We'll see you next month in Charlotte, my friend. Thank you as always.
Thanks, G-Dub.
All right, there is Rich Lerner. Again, only he can have 3 different stories being written simultaneously, depending on what the outcome is going to be. Quick break, come back, final thoughts here on a Monday. Back in on 5 Clubs. A reminder, tomorrow, Johnson Wagner, Brendan DeYoung, the whole show with those 2. We needed the whole show. They'll be with me in studio. And also Gabby Herzig, a 5 Club contributor, great writer for The Athletic. Enjoy your round of golf today, Gabby. She won the lottery. She is playing Augusta National, as are a number of other members of the media as well. The experience yesterday for so many people who have invested in Rory McIlroy was exhausting, it was exhilarating, and ultimately it was very, very gratifying. I just want to share with you a photo that I got over the weekend, and this was on Saturday at Augusta National. That guy who was on our show last Monday, a two-time Masters champion, Ben Crenshaw, he's the only guy that I went all in on. I put my chips in 1973 when I was 7 years old, saying he's going to be my guy. He had 15 top 10s before the 1984 Masters and 5 seconds in majors. So I know what it's like to have your guts ripped out, rooting for some guy. And to see him after all these years and him still contributing as one of the great designers, co-designers with Bill Corr, it's just an example of why the week at Augusta National, whether you're there as a fan, you're there as a patron, or somebody covering the event, is so nourishing. Rory McIlroy has changed not only his own narrative, it's changed a lot in terms of how we looked at the rest of the year, and also as we look at his place in the grand scheme historically of things, but in terms of this year. Could this be the kind of year that even he has never experienced in his career? Much more to do tomorrow. Have a great Monday. For all of us here at 5 Clubs, see you then.